Call to order. Actually, if you'll give us a roll call.
Peter Dillingham.
Here.
Randy Gilbert.
Here.
Shaylin Hanning.
Here.
Edward Hillary.
Here.
Rob Keenan.
Here. It's like we've got a quorum. Okay, if you guys will, let's stand and do the salute to our flag, the Oklahoma flag, and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in the Oklahoma flag salute. I salute the flag of the state of Oklahoma. Its symbols of peace unite all people. A moment of silence. Thank you. All right, thank you guys all for being here. As we can see, the superintendent is not here, so we will skip his opening comments and jump right in. There's several items on the agenda where I'm going to make comments, so there won't be a whole lot of opening comments. I will tell everyone that as the governor is continuing to sign pieces of legislation, things have been moving right along. We're very happy with the outcomes of policy and funding. We'll talk about the funding more, but the policy initiatives that we pushed forward, we had 6 of them and all have passed. So very, very successful. We are, I believe, still awaiting rules signatures. Is that right? Yes. So we don't have signature on rules right now. You guys know that you adopted the rules that brought forward, had the period for open comment, all those things that we did. Since the legislature did not act, they would be automatically disapproved if the governor does not act. Had the legislature acted and approved, then they would be automatically approved had they not acted. So we are not the only agency in that boat. There's a lot of agencies that the legislature did not act on. So we're waiting to see, I think, until the 27th. Is that correct? 24th. 24th is when we will know. That's the deadline. So, yeah, that's where we are. I will also say that next week I'm planning to be gone for vacation. That'll be my week out of the office. I'm available by phone if anyone needs me. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into the minutes of the April 18th regular meeting. Any discussion? They're real easy to read this time. A pretty short meeting. Remember, my wife had her procedure that day, so we ran through it about 20 minutes. Okay, go ahead and call the vote. Yes.
Mr. Hillary.
Yes.
Ms. Hanning.
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes.
Mr. Dillingham.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, management information. First item there is a summary of our state staff meeting, and Dr. Lockwood's going to go through that with you. Had a great state staff meeting, and he'll cover a lot of the contents of that meeting. Have a PowerPoint soon. You know, Justin's pretty colorful, but he didn't create the PowerPoint. You can't take credit for that.
One of our great people in communications and marketing did that. State staff meeting is, we have the meeting twice a year. It's the only 2 times a year that all of our employees come together, those remotely housed and those housed at the agency. The meeting we had a few weeks ago was at Stillwater, was at Meridian Technology Center. We bring all of our employees together. The day started with the director having comments and giving an overview of things. I did not include his comments because there was things the board has already heard or will hear directly from him, so you don't need to have me rehash that with you. We introduced new employees. Brenna Long is a new communications and marketing assistant. Joey Vanek is accreditation manager. Samantha Robinson's a skill center instructor. Ben Morgan is our T&I division program specialist. All right, click the clicker. Line.
Career and technology education.
Okay, Susan Benson is new at facilities here at the agency. Paradise, STEM Program Specialist. Rick Meeks is our Performance Auditor. Philip is with TNI's Program Specialist. Jessica Maker is in the FACS Division. Garrett is a Skill Center Instructor, and Jesse is also a FACS Program Specialist. Transitions, we're always happy when we get to have our employees grow and move. Kylie Moulton moved out of communications and marketing and moved to a BMIC Program Specialist position. Karen Talbot, who's been with the agency for several years, moved into a management position. She is now a leadership and professional development manager. And Angela Jones, which some of you remember back years ago, was a administrative assistant or executive assistant rather for the director, is now will be over our purchasing as the senior buyer here in the agency.
You guys got to work with her quite a bit.
So very happy at that. We do have years of service recognition. People that were 5 years with Oklahoma CareerTech, I'm not going to read you all the names. Gives you a sense of how much turnover we've had the last few years as the entire world is seeing the job market is changing. 10 years with CareerTech.
Each one of these gets a little award.
Yeah, we have
like
them.
that. We celebrate
Yeah.
for those of you that have been. How many bucks now?
We do at the state staff also recognize years of service for the state of Oklahoma, because sometimes we hire employees that come from other agencies. I did not include them in this presentation for brevity. 25 years at the state, 4 with CareerTech. Cecil, a Skill Center instructor, and H.L. Baird is now our work-based learning liaison, 35 years. 3 folks that a lot of time committed to the state and to CareerTech. I guess what you would say the crown jewel, Joanne Dewald has been 40 years, is in our finance division. And she's kind of our finance formula guru, and you can see why after 40 years, why somebody would be the guru. So, Spotlight Awards, we are happy to recognize, and these are voted on by employees. A committee put together to select these winners. Had an enormous amount of nominations this year. Jeremy Greenwood is one of our gentlemen that works at the print plant, handles their facilities, as well as some of their deliveries and that stuff. And just for his hard work, he received the Spotlight Award. Ashley Rink, I think most of you know who Ashley is, was nominated for her outstanding work of helping mentor new employees and bring them on board and that. So very proud that Ashley received that nomination, and the committee picked her. Rebecca Saxon is with our IMD division, and she had the unpleasant task of being assigned when we changed the Skill Center's data system over. And anytime you change data systems, it creates a lot of angst for a lot of people. And the Skill Center,
Nice way to put it.
yeah, and the Skill Center instructors had to go through that growth. And Rebecca did a remarkable job to literally hold their hands and work them through that transition, and was nominated and received that award. We're really proud of that. Barrett Richardson is a Skill Center employee, and his task is he works with the truck driver training piece. He is the one who actually, I would say, recruits our students out of the correctional institutions and gets them into the program. He works with our partners outside of the agency, getting them jobs, everything. So he was nominated and received a Spotlight Award for that. We gave 2 team awards, facility and logistics, as you all saw them out front working when you came in. Have done an outstanding job. Setting up meetings like this is their job. They come in usually in arranged rooms and everything, and they've done an outstanding job of working on the fly and do a great job with this facility. We have a beautiful facility, and they do a great job of taking care of it. The last team was the STEM division for their outstanding work in everything that they've been tasked with, a lot of growth in aviation, a lot of areas, and they've done an outstanding job, so they were nominated, and the committee felt they were.
Tony, how many, is Tony still here? Yeah. How many programs have you added in STEM over the last 2 years?
I'd say 2 to 3 years, probably about 100.
Bunch. Bunch.
And we're adding all the time.
A lot of schools demanding STEM programs.
The new award we gave, this is the first year it's been given, was Rising Star, and that's to pick the newer employees that came in and we see a bright future. Jim Long has already moved from an admin assistant job in literally a couple of months, 3 months, and is going into communications and marketing as communications marketing coordinator. Her direct supervisor had to be out for an extended period of time. She got a very unpleasant person to work with me. And I knew nothing about supervising that division in the short run, and she made sure, and she'd only been here herself about a month, and she did an outstanding job. I didn't nominate or pick her, but she's an outstanding rising star in the agency.
You need to make sure she knows that.
Brittany Hodge, she is in our CCD division and does a great job in facilitating a lot of communication with other partners outside of this agency, and is new to us and has been a great addition to the team. Our keynote speaker that day, Kelly Barnes. Kelly is a product of CareerTech and did a tremendous job. I said we don't need to have a speaker next year. There's no way anyone is going to touch how good he did as a product of the system, and talking about this agency and what we do and the impact it has on people and the value that it holds. So I was very impressed with his presentation. Retirements, we are losing a few people. Sad to see them go. Some have been the agency for a long time. A lot of wealth of knowledge walking out the door. We try, and we have done a pretty good job of transitioning and through some succession planning, having most of those folks, some of them, their replacements are already on board and are starting to do some shadowing and stuff as they depart the agency. We had lunch provided by our EA, our Employees Association. The afternoon, we had 3 professional development sessions that staff could choose which they wanted to go to and rotate through. Well received for the most part as far as the PD. The history, CareerTech history was actually presented by one of our folks, Craig Mail, who's over our resource center manager and has been in the agency for several years. And the other 2 were outside presenters that we brought in. Overall, I think a great day. Captures our entire year in a day, and staff seem to respond well to it. You've got a very short, brief thing of a full day. So, any questions?
Some of you have attended before. Any questions? Yeah, John.
Very good.
Very good day.
Very good employees. Great team.
Yeah, very good team. It's been very good. And a lot of those transitions that you will see are the ones that we were kind of succession planning to take positions in those retirements. So that is good that we were able to start people working through the system. Thank you, Dustin. All right. I'm on track here. Item 2 is discussion and review of agency goals. There are a few bullet points that I wanted to cover and just have a discussion. It's nothing we need to vote on. Have some open discussion about what's going on in the agency. I think they're very valuable to talk about. Hiring and recruitment being one of the things that we are going to discuss. So last year that came through this board, we had pay increases for our pay bands, all from the bottom all the way to pay band 15, which is our manager role. Worked out really well. That helped to keep pace with the teacher pay raises that came through. So I think that has paid off dividends where we've been able to recruit and have applicants in jobs where we were having very low applicant selection. So this is working out really well where we can stay competitive in the job market. Also have a very good climate. It seems to be that people are happy and enjoying it. So that we've had several applications where I think in the past it's been very, very difficult to find people that want to work at a state agency. I'm very pleased with it right now. I know a lot of these people in the room have had recent jobs, whether it's a web manager job or if it's a finance manager job, several jobs open and a great application base. So I would say that the actions that the board has taken has gone well. Now, I'll couple that with the next bullet point that I'm very concerned by is the OMES's initiative to harmonize. So the harmonization is pretty scary because state agencies have great differences. So when you're comparing state agencies to one another, you're not looking at the competitive nature of the actual jobs that are posted. You're looking at state government as a whole, which I understand, but can be difficult because our competitive market is usually in education. So when we're trying to work toward education and recruiting education professionals, we need to stay competitive in that market. So the harmonization has begun before me, and there's many of our leadership team that can speak to that. But it started.
Is that what you're calling it, or is
Nope,
that
that's what they're calling it.
Great.
I wouldn't use that word, but that's why I'm using the term harmonization. So OMS really began with how do we make sure that we're efficient with IT in our state agencies, and how are we efficient with finance in our agencies. We've been able to maintain some separation in both of those areas, not a great deal of separation, especially with IT, but making sure that finance, we've been able to maintain our own as we fund schools, and a lot of flow through. Some agencies cannot. So we've been very fortunate there. What's working now is HR harmonization. So that began with them approving all job descriptions and job, what are they called? Types, family types, and there's two different names, family types and job codes had to go through OMS to be approved. So for instance, the name that we had for a position, they may want it changed. Usually we can live with that. Okay, you call it whatever you want. We're going to have our job that is posted. When it started really becoming a problem is when they're changing job descriptions. And I may have Justin, because he oversees HR, talk a little bit about that. But an example that he has used several times is one of our federal grants coordinators. When that position job description was turned into them, they wanted it to be called an admin assistant. It's definitely not an admin assistant, and then they wanted to change our description to match that. We've had several instances, I don't know if there's any others we want to talk about, where they want to set what our job descriptions should be. Can't really do that because they don't understand what we do. Now, and you have a timeline in your packet, if you look at the classification and compensation in your packet, that is their timeline for moving forward, and they are going to want to move to harmonization of pay, where they would set, based off that, the job codes, family codes, and the job description, what the pay should be for those employees. Currently, you as the board, and through me, set the pay for all employees. This would take a lot of that role out. I don't know what your role would be as it is in terms of compensation. Possibly some set of my compensation, but it looks to me like there's going to be harmonization of directors as well. I think all harmonization of pay is bad for agencies, because then you can't look at what is the need, where are we moving forward. You can't compare us to a DHS or a DRS, where you're hiring counselors from the field that we're trying to recruit educators. Median education salaries have gone up steadily. We've tried to maintain that to stay competitive. We ran, for instance, last year when I came in, I ran a comparison, had OMS run it, comparison of our positions to other state agencies. Well, the only alignment that we could have was, I believe it was at 10% of our positions aligned with other positions in agencies. So nobody else has the positions that we have. So it's very difficult to start thinking about harmonization, and it looks like January 1, 2025 is when that will begin. So at that time, new employees that we hire, OMS will have to set salaries.
So if they're downgrading a grant manager to an
Admin
executive
assistant.
assistant, or an admin assistant, they're doing that so that they can pay less for what will ultimately be
Yeah.
a much more complicated job.
Yes. So I have a great fear that program specialists, which is a lot of what we do, that's our people that work in divisions like you saw in front of you. Our FACS division has hired a couple program specialists. STEM is getting ready to hire as well. Ag hired one a year ago. BMIC had to transition into one. Those jobs started pay band 13. 13, I don't even know if I have that in front of me. I think it starts out at 63 is the starting of that. So it's usually about a 10-year tenured track teacher. That's about where you're starting, somewhere in there. Some 10-year teachers are way above that, some are below, depending on the school. We estimate that what they are looking at for the pay structure is starting those positions around 50 or possibly below, and that would be that'd be detrimental. We'd never hire another teacher from the classroom. So
Those, and the program specialists use them, for example, they're the ones, it's my understanding, they're the ones that work in the agency that actually communicate directly with the classroom teachers.
Correct.
For the program.
and their job is
So they're
to
very
guide
essential.
them
Yes.
if they're not doing their job correctly. So how would you take somebody that doesn't have the background and expect them to have buy-in from the schools themselves? I mean, we can force that, but it's very difficult to think that that would be a good position for the agency to be in.
Thanks to your leadership, you were able to bring some of those, I mean, just use that example,
Yeah.
because you mentioned program specialists, you were able to bring some of those program specialists that were very comfortable and very good at what they do, because in the past, you've had program specialists leave the agency
Go back to the classroom.
and go back into the classroom because they pay more. So that's a challenge in itself,
It is.
and so,
So we,
How many times can they say, we'll see, or I don't know in this response?
it's hard to work with. We've invited them here. Justin's had several meetings with them. I know Lisa meets with them constantly on IT and finance and different things there. Just to give you some examples of working with OMES, and Lisa would speak to it better, how many years have we been waiting on a program that would be able to give us a mid-year budget detail from OMES?
I think it's at least 4, it might be going on 5 years.
That we have waited for the product they said they would build us because
Right.
we're not allowed to do it now. They have to do it. But they can't understand how our finance works, so they can't provide. So we have constantly gone to battles with them trying to bill us for partially finished products, and it is a bad deal. To give you some more examples on the wastefulness that I believe exists within OMES, we can not hire our own programmers typically to build software, and we have to have data collection for all of our teachers and all of our schools. That product now is called CTIMS, which we have built with their programmers. That costs us over $800,000 a year just to keep the programmers through OMES. So it is a very inefficient system altogether. It makes the state, it makes OMES a great deal of money because they're taking a cut off of that. But it is, in my opinion, very bad for the state.
Is this different compensation? Is it referring to like fair hiring practices or trying to standardize jobs across what?
Standardized, yes. Fair hiring practice, we already have that, and we're able to do that currently. We use targeted selection as our tool. Every agency has to have a tool, and our HR department takes care of that. So they don't want any part necessarily of the actual hiring. It's just setting the pay and determining job descriptions. So standardization of pay for all government agency employees. Which,
And pay based on what they decide the
Yeah.
job is outside of.
correct, because they've already been denying our job descriptions.
And it would be retroactive?
Nope, not retroactive. No, that's the only saving grace right now. It's not retroactive, or I'd have mass exodus.
OMES gets their authority from the legislature,
Directly from the governor.
from the governor.
Directly from the governor, yes.
So this is happening to,
All agencies. Yes, and so all agencies that are not exempt, so higher ed regents are exempt from OMES. I don't know how they did that. They did it a long time ago when OMES came about, they got exempt. I'm going to look to see how we could do that if this continues. I don't know, the only other agency I know of is OESC, because they do not take state dollars. It's all federal dollars. But when I talk to DRS or DHS, they're under the same binds. Now, it doesn't scare them quite as much because they're hiring caseworkers, and so if you've been around social workers, I mean, they're only making $36,000 a year anyway. So it's a lot easier for them to recruit from the field than it is for us.
and who did you say was exempt?
OESC and higher regents, regents of higher education are currently exempt. There may be more, I just don't know. Andrew, do you know? We have hundreds of state agencies, I don't know. But that includes also like board of nursing that wouldn't have employees really other than some clerical positions, and private vocational board. I mean, there's some that have, OMS would be the biggest. Corrections, maybe. But it's very concerning for me running an agency, so we'll continue to work toward that. I want you guys to be aware as all, also, because you may have direct connections legislatively or to the governor where you can voice your concerns or share your concerns. But I think it is bad for CareerTech. Because if we don't have an agency, we don't have a system. So,
The timeline seems a little aggressive to me.
and I think they've been releasing it for a while. They've had this timeline public for quite some time. haven't they? So the agencies have known, I think it was released somewhere around when I have come in, that it was released. But it is moving very rapidly now,
So,
as you see that.
I would see it as a positive thing for CareerTech.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. It would, in the exemption process, I imagine it would be time consuming.
I'm imagining I have to take legislative action, so I will have to, I'll have to work legislatively to create an exemption from OPS.
So can the board as a body,
You can't do anything.
no, but can we take some type of action or attention to the matter?
We could set it as we could work toward maybe a proclamation or something like that. I could get with Amber on what our roles could be. Really, right now, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that that's something that I'm going to continue to work toward. We could talk about what our options could be.
Yes, the board could have action.
You have a very valuable voice in your interactions and your relationships, so I think that would be very meaningful. There may be some great outcomes for the state by this. I don't know the interactions of all state agencies. I just know mine, and this state agency, it would not be good for us. So there may be some great outcomes that they're working toward that we don't have sight of. But I know that we have met with them multiple occasions to share our concern about how this would hurt. Doesn't seem to matter. So. Okay. The other bullet that we have on this topic is our state board meeting locations for September and November. As was alluded to earlier, those were determined last year when we were setting board meeting dates that we wanted to be out in the field in the fall. The fall is a great time to be around students and see schools working. Based on the survey results that we had done at that time, Green Country would be our next selection, and then Northeast Technology Center. Actually already reached out to both superintendents. Both are willing to have us and can accommodate the live stream, so that works out really well. September would be at Green Country, and November, Northeast Tech. That would actually be in their Claremont campus. So we'll get information and addresses and all those things for you. Be Claremore, they have multiple campuses, but that would be probably the best location for everybody to get to. Pryor's their largest, but Claremore might be the easiest and have still have a great option and venue of students that you would get to see. So I think that would be good. We do it similar to what we did at the Shawnee meeting, where a few students came in and presented about what they do, and the superintendent would talk about their school as a whole, and we could do a tour after the meeting if you chose to do so. Any questions there? Okay. All right.
Thank you for bulleting it in the email. It is so helpful because I have to read it twice and then go, oh, okay, and make a note to myself. So thank you. I'm glad you made it. Yeah.
I wasn't worried. All right, management action items. Item 3.01, discussion and possible action to create an advisory rule committee to review and make recommendations to the state board concerning agency administrative rules. Ms. Gina Hubbard is going to talk about that. Go ahead, Gina.
Good morning. It's always great to have you guys in Stillwater. We appreciate you being here. As Director Hagan said, I'm here to talk to you about the creation of a formal entity that would listen to public comment, review current rules, craft rules around legislation that is passed. And then an example of that would be our new industry specialist certification that the governor signed, so we would need to put rules around that. So this committee would be a part of that discussion. And then they would bring recommendations to this board. The most exciting thing about this advisory committee is you are eligible to be a member of it if you would like to talk about rules. And as long as you're not the majority, you can also be a part of that by just letting us know you'd like to be.
Everybody raise your hand all at once.
I know, don't rush the button. So I'd like you to consider a motion to create this rules advisory committee and allow Director Haken to determine the composition of that committee.
Would the rules committee, due to our state requirements, we have to have posting of rules, we have to have all that. I mean, would that be would that still continue?
Yes.
So the rural committee would come in and make a recommendation,
Yes,
and then they would come back to the board and,
yes.
and we'd have public comment and all that, so.
So
it
we currently have a portal
it
open.
kind of streamlined the process,
Yes,
maybe?
streamlining is a great term. Yes, we currently have a portal open until the end of August where anyone can put in a recommendation for a new rule or a rule change. And so what would happen is after that deadline, then the rules committee would look at all of those and determine yay or nay or.
To give you an example, like this year, after the recommendations came through, we sat down and look at the recommendations and can they be logically implemented? Are they recommendations that match up with other recommendations? We kind of sort through those and then present back to you all. This would give more eyes to that process, official eyes, because we currently use some superintendents and some field members and people on our staff, look at this rule, give us your thought. This would formalize that, where they actually have a real role.
So you would have superintendents from
Correct.
agency and
Yes, exactly.
Would it be open to anyone who is already an employee of CareerTech? Is that, so it's just?
Well, you're giving the, if you move forward as the motion was presented, you would give me discretion to appoint.
Okay,
how many people are looking at?
I haven't even set a number, but currently we have a unofficial rules committee of superintendents, and what is on that, eight? Eight, so probably 12 members, time we add some people from other areas. They could review.
Move to approve the, action to create an advisory role, committee to review.
Second.
Appointed by the state director.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. Manning?
yes.
Mr. Hillary?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving right along, and we will look for that input and see how that goes throughout this year. Item 3.02 is discussion and possible action on the lottery scholarships. And Director of Student Success, Corey Gray, is going to talk to you about that.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have the wonderful opportunity to tell you about what we're doing with CareerTech and the development of our instructors. We're going to start with lottery funds and scholarship. And in your packet, there is a single sheet FY24 Education Trust Fund for CareerTech Scholarship Summary Sheet. With the lottery funds, we pay in arrears. I mean, we receive the money and then we pay out. And then we're also paying in arrears for scholarships. So we actually want to know we have the money in the bank before we spend it. So you're looking at FY24. It'll go back to the summer of 2023 with the total number of scholarships and the total amount spent each semester. So you have summer, fall 23, spring 24, and the anticipated summer 24 numbers. I can tell you when we looked at the final closing number for 24, we actually ended up receiving additional applications, so we received 99 applications. We just forecasted 83. So the total dollar amount spent for scholarship was the $420,887.52. Are there any questions on lottery scholarship?
And you likely remember that statute defines how lottery dollars can be used. This is a portion of that.
Right. And the total allocation from lottery funds for scholarship is 10%.
All right, do we have a vote to approve? Motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Discussion? We'll move to a vote.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Hillary?
Yes.
Ms. Manning?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
All right, great. I'll let you just go ahead and keep going, Corey.
Perfect.
Item 3.03.
Okay, now we are moving to the K-12 schools. And so we said scholarship was 10%, K-12 and tech centers split an additional 90%. So 45% of the total funds allocated will go to our K-12 schools for innovative grants. So we're looking to put technology into programs, the additional $15,000 that we have for each scholarship, each grant. And you can see on your list, we have it broken down by division as well as schools. So first page is pretty much ag. You can go through and see all the different divisions in the schools related to those grants. We're allocating this year $2.1 million to be used for technology in the classroom for the upcoming school year. That's one of the stipulations that items purchased actually have to be used in the classroom for next school year. So,
Is there any questions?
And you already know this is allocated?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We can make sure.
It actually comes through, as part of the GA. We'll see, right? It's listed within the GA how much
Separately in
Yeah.
appropriate.
in our appropriations, so.
I move we approve the K-12 grants, water grants.
Any discussion? Ashley, let's call it.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Mr. Delory?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Or you still got a podium. You
I
can have
do, I
it.
Okay, and then the final list that you have for me is from the tech centers. And because it's a larger amount, I did give you a breakdown of the division, the name of the project, as well as the tech center, and a description of the items that they would like to purchase with this grant. With the funds, some of them will actually use general funds to create a larger project. Some of them will just only utilize this grant monies. So you'll see we were able to fund a number of grants in various areas for various items.
You know, one of the things for CareerTech and the advantage we have is the diversity of the programs.
Mhm.
You know, just to read what the application and the grants would be for.
Yeah.
Is very impressive. And it varies according to the area of the state of Oklahoma.
Exactly.
Depending on what jobs are in their community, and they're
Yeah.
directly tied to the demand that they have in the workforce.
Make a motion, we approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead, call for a vote then.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Delory?
Yes.
Ms. Annie?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Cory.
Thank you.
Everything we've approved.
Yeah,
I mean, descriptions are nuts. Because then you think, well, how could they learn to without this?
Yeah.
Which they already are. And then you just kind of go down this
Pretty
wormhole of
impressive.
how is this even possible?
pretty
And
impressive.
yet it is, but that's exciting. So exciting.
Keep that list shared with your friend. Thanks for doing. All right, item 3.05 is discussion and possible action on the proposed calendar for the 2025 state board meetings. So you should have one of those there. See if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, or if you want to approve it as presented. Notice the dates that were not at Oliver Hodge there, so that should be June, July, and then the technology centers to be determined. We would do a survey again for those that would like to work in, if those dates are approved today. And if you like the summer at the agency, we moved to that last year. You remember, that way we're not in the schools in the summer. So, okay, we have a motion, do we have a second? You've got a second. Any discussion? All right, let's call for a vote.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Delory?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Right. Okay, we're going to keep moving on then. This item will take a little bit longer. As you all probably know, one of your duties is to approve the funding mechanisms that we use for schools. We oversee 29 districts. This year we received one-time dollars, so it is not like what we typically receive. As we typically receive base dollars, and they would go into our traditional funding formula to make sure that schools have allocation. So I worked with members of our team, some superintendents, presented this to the superintendents yesterday, actually, at our annual meeting. They have received a tentative allocation based off of this. Not that one. Oh, yeah, it's just got one too many on this part. Okay, so this breaks down. The right slide. Oh, sorry, I'm going too quick. My apologies. So what I'm going to do first is break down the dollars that have come to the agency and what they were intended for by the legislature, and then I have a formula that was created for one-time dollars. As we don't typically, like I mentioned, we don't typically receive one-time dollars, so we created a new formula, and you guys would need to approve that. They have received tentative allocations based off of this formula, but as I said, they're tentative, so that could change depending on the action of the board. Thank you, Blaine. So this year we received $3 million to fully fund FBA. I don't know why it says one-time money there, probably because I wasn't thinking straight when I made this slide. The rest of it is one-time money. That is not one-time money. That is into our base. The first goal of those dollars is to reimburse the cut that I had to give all schools mid-year. So hopefully you remember we cut the schools mid-year because FBA went up in January. Insurance always goes up. We did not have enough balance in our FBA to cover the cut, so they had to be cut program money. So the reimbursement for that is the first goal, and then to fully fund FBA. The legislature was generous enough to make sure that was covered. The 27,640, which is now actually in appropriations, it's 27,590, right? Didn't that number change from 640 to one time? Okay, it's still that?
It's 28,590 total.
Total, yeah, 590 total.
It's the skill centers and the expansion.
Yes, thank you. That's why she's CFO, I'm director. Because she knows the numbers. So 27,640 is the money that was given to clear the wait list. The Senate started that proposal, went through with the House, budget process, transparency, all those things that you're probably already aware of. This is how I broke the money down. One thing that we're working toward is WED apprenticeships. That means in our Workforce Economic Development Division, those are shorter term. They're not in our full-time program. Why it ties to the wait list is those students can then come out of full-time programs in a lot of instances and open spots to secondary students. So as you pull adults out and they can go to apprenticeships, then you can open spaces for those secondary students that have been waiting. So that has been a goal of ours, is to show the state what we can do with apprenticeships if CareerTech has the opportunity to take advantage of it. Kind of the model that's been doing it well is Meridian currently. And then also it ties in with us pulling the grant from Commerce to us for the registered DOL apprenticeships. So it all ties together. And then 500,000 is of the one-time dollars are for the agency, as we always need a portion of the dollars to make sure that we can maintain our facility as well. So one-time dollars work well for facility maintenance and other things that are needed around here. Skill Center's got a specific allotment, 450,000, 500,000 for the expansion of tech center services to Beaver County. When I had asked for these dollars based on the appropriation, very exciting. I had hoped that all those things would be in our base, but they decided to get one-time money. So we're going to do the best that we can with those things. Questions so far? Okay. So how am I going to break those dollars up? This is the formula areas that you'll see. It's based off local needs, and I'll show you the local needs assessment. You have that in front of you as well. The secondary service incentive, approved campus funding, and student service formula, and then the capped all schools when no school would receive more than 35,000 per full-time instructor. And that's how we consider a program, is if it has a full-time instructor. So there's a lot here, and that definitely ask questions if you need to. So we'll start with local needs. 40% of the funding, that total, is based off of a local needs assessment. So some schools have a lot of ad valorem dollars, some schools do not have a lot of ad valorem dollars. They also receive dollars based off the state aid formula we currently maintain. So I took all general fund collection, that's their local dollars, that's that 389 million there, plus the current formula, which is the 49 million, and then I multiplied that times 0.7 as a number that shows what can be spent on programs, because you're going to have other costs such as administration, facilities maintenance, capital outlay, all those other things. But 0.7 is a good average for what you could spend on instruction. And actually, just side note, when we go through this, you'll see Lisa did a great calculation on instructional costs. It's around 61 to 62% on average, and if you pull out capital outlay, then it bumps it up to about 70%. So the number works well there, and we've figured those things out because of what Lisa did, and then pairing that with our new performance auditor has been fantastic to show how we're coding some things and how we can move those around. So that's
So
just
the
a-
remaining 30% is just
the other
general?
formulas I'm going to show you.
Oh,
Yeah, the other 30% is not used to calculate their cost per program. So if you'll see that divided by the total of full-time instructors, that 261,000 or almost 262,000 is what we're saying represents the average cost for that program that has a full-time instructor. Okay, so the other dollars, the 30%, are what they use to run the school. Yep, as a whole. Then I do the same process for each school themselves. That was the total. Then each school I do that with, and we compare their number to the average to decide if they are above or below that average to determine their need based off local collections. No, that's confusing.
Is that something that you can send to us? Just a little bit interesting to see.
Yep.
Different schools.
Yep, and here's an example of that. So this is actually a school example where they are currently receiving 2.4 million in state aid from us. They have a general fund collection of 8.7. Take that times 0.7 or 70%, that's 7.8. Total number of full-time programs based off the instructor is 30, so they're below the state average by $1,600 per program. Multiply that out times the number of programs, their state total need would be 48,000 in that school's example, based off this formula. We only have so many dollars, so when I added up the total need for each school, it far exceeds the allocation. So you take that need based off the percentage of the total, then you multiply that times what's available, you get what could be funded by this formula, and that's $13,538.
so they're short $48,000 per program?
Yes, based off the average. They're short, that's what they're short. Not per program, that's total. Per program, 1,600.
And you're still short 35,000 after the
Yeah,
allocation.
yeah, based off the average.
Okay.
Correct. So I will tell you this here now. I'm looking at something similar to this to revamp our whole formula. So our whole formula has not been changed since the creation of the system and is a little outdated. I'm going to tell you that. We need to look at revamping that as a whole based off the current local needs, because lots of things have changed since the 60s and 70s. So we need to re-up our formula. This is a model similar to what I expect it to look like. It's not going to be exact. This is based off of current state aid, and it's based off of a full-time program, being a teacher. There's some other things we can look at, but this is a way of determining local need, which is a portion of what the one-time dollars would be based off of. Okay, those are great questions. I know it's confusing. It's far less confusing than the other formula. I promise. You would never understand it. Nobody really understands it. Okay. Secondary service incentive is the other large portion of this formula. It's 40%. You can see there at the top. This is how we associate the wait list to a school. So wait list numbers as currently presented. Now we're working on defining rules around wait lists. That would be an action that we're looking at taking next year. Those are unverified numbers, meaning that one school may consider a student that applied, but it may not actually be able to attend because they haven't met other school criteria, still part of their wait list because they wanted to attend. Some schools may sort them off. So that's not a good way to look at funding. It's a great way to look at demand, but it's not a great way, in my opinion, to look at funding. Secondary service rate is a verified number. What that number means is how many of your juniors and seniors that can attend are you serving? So schools that are rural, for example, our highest are in the mid 40s. So they're serving 40-something% of their juniors and seniors. We have schools in the urban areas that are in the teens. So this would show, because they have so much larger population, this the formula would allow the schools that have the lowest service rate to get more dollars because they have an area or an opportunity to grow. The reason why I use this is because it directly corresponds to the largest wait lists. So the schools with the lowest service rate numbers also have the largest wait list. For example, a metro school, one of our metro area schools, has a service rate of 13%. They also have a wait list of around 1,000 students. So they should receive more of the one-time dollars, as that was the goal of the one-time dollars from the legislature. So then I broke that down by grouping. If you are under 20% in your service rate, you would receive half of this allocation or allotment. If you are under 25% but above 20, you would get a quarter, and so on and so forth. You guys can read just as well as I can, probably better. But the example at the bottom starts to show you how this adds together. So this is an example of a different school than you saw the first time, but we walked through their local needs. That total was $307,000 they would need based off of that formula. Then we added their service rate number. They would receive another 170, almost 171,000. So those two would be added together as we're working through this formula for the allotment they may receive. Okay. Questions there before I jump into the next? Okay. Campus allotment. By statute, we are obligated as a board to consider the number of campuses when funding schools. That's how it says it. Consider the number of campuses. So it is 10% of the funding. That's what I have determined. You guys may say that I'm incorrect. I would encourage you to keep that as a good small number of this one-time dollars, because the one-time dollars are to increase service rate of students. So by this formula, pretty straightforward, each campus would receive $42,033. If you have two campuses, see, you get 84 based on the example that's below. So now we are adding the program funding from the local needs, we are adding service rate, and we are adding a campus allotment. So you just keep adding those things together for the school. Questions?
When do they receive this?
We just received notice of the dollars after it was signed by the governor. Then I had a formula kind of built already, anticipating this was going to happen. Gave them a tentative allocation last week, that this is what it could look like, and I presented the formula to them yesterday.
And why did you feel this would happen?
Because Senator Pugh told me it'd be one-time dollars. Okay, the last portion of this formula is a student services allotment, and it is based off other statutory guidance. So the statute does not define our formula, it just gives parameters around what should be considered. And again, enrollment, transportation, all those things are part of what we should consider as defined. So I put a 10% allocation on that as well. That statute was likely put together, I mean, it was before I was born, but likely put together to consider base funding, not one-time funding, so I have a pretty small amount of what was there. So this is all pulled from their reporting. It's called cost per program. You'll see the CPP. Lisa was able to pull those together, determine what their percentage of total expenditures would be for those categories, those four categories. They are then grouped based off the size of school, and we do that typically in a lot of our funding mechanisms, group them by size of school, and I didn't show all of that, but we can definitely go through it. So then the average expenditure for those four categories by their grouping determines whether they receive more of the allotment or less of the allotment. That's pretty straightforward. If the average for their grouping is 61% and they're at 59, they're going to receive less of the allotment. If they're more, they're going to receive more of the allotment. So I know it looks complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. And that's the end of the funding. So thoughts, questions, comments, you can, it's your directive, whether you approve that, wanted us to make changes, whatever you would see that you think needs to be changed. Just to give you an example, I did not receive negative comment from the superintendents. They all seem to understand, that there was at least a consideration for all aspects. Do I receive a lot of local dollars? Do I not? Do I have an opportunity for quick growth, low service rate, and the statutory guidance as well? So it seemed to go over fairly well. I mean, Justin and Gina were there. They can vouch for me. I really thought I was gonna get beat up. But when you're talking about their money, you never know how mad they're gonna get, but it seemed to go well.
Funding one time or the expenses associated with that one time.
So the guidance that I'm going to present to them, if this formula is approved, that they should have expenditures done within 2 years. So I realize that they've already probably budgeted for their next year, so they may need an extra year or a few months after to get those expenditures done. For example, the legislature did not tie any specific strings to the dollars. So when we were negotiating with Senator Pugh, because he started the one-time discussion, what I told him is if you're going to give one-time dollars, do not say that all schools have to spend the money the same. So they didn't, because what Dale Latham needs for his school at Southwest is going to be totally different than what Tulsa Tech needs. So in Southwest, they have zero building fund. So Dale's never been able to add more programs because he can't build a facility. He may be able to put up a shell of a building, and that could house 2 programs that would be monumental for Southwest Tech. In Tulsa Tech, they have a huge building fund. That's not what they need. They may have other needs. Maybe they have instructor costs, or maybe they need to be able to facilitate into the schools what students should be there. They're going to have a totally different set of needs. I know one of our schools said, I will plan, because they're going to have, their budget will continue to increase as ad valorem is expected to increase. So he says, I'm going to plan for 2 years of salary for a new program instructor and then be able to roll them into my general operations after that. So every school's got a different circumstance, and I understand that. I want to give them 2 years to expend the dollars and then show the legislature what we have done, because we already report on our number of students. That's my plan. If you guys like it. Okay, thoughts, comments? I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
If it's only a one time, are you worried about them spending it on salary?
Yeah, I would say there's some concern. I've been very confident in what they've been able to do, though. Our schools have been very intelligent in no matter on how they spend. Last year, we pushed them really hard to grow, and for example, we had no dollars to increase, and they grew by 9%. So I would say that they are pretty good stewards of the resources they have. If I was very fearful, I would probably put clawback clauses into the dollars. But the dollars are fairly small when you talk about most budget anyway. So like a lot of schools will receive $350,000. There'll be a few of the larger schools that receive around $1 million, but most of them will be fairly small. So it's a small portion of their budget. I know that a lot of schools are going to buy equipment. They're going to buy, they know I'm not going to do something to jeopardize what I can fund in the future. So if they do salaries, they're going to have to cut people later. And they know that. So we've had good discussions around that. And I would say most of them do a pretty good job of understanding.
I would move that we approve the formula for dispersal of legislative action on
Thanks,
Second.
As presented.
as presented.
Any discussion? Here now, go ahead and call for a vote.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Hillary?
Yes.
Ms. Handy?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
All right. The next item is item 3.07, discussion and possible action on a 5% pay increase for employees in pay bands 17 to 19. As we made some changes last year and gave some increases, we did not include the 17 to 19, so that would be everyone below me and above manager status. That's most of the people that are in the room. They did not receive the increase last year, which was, in most cases, because it was structured a little different, much larger than 5%. Andrew has been great to guide me through this a little bit, so we have to give consideration. I'll just go ahead and pass these around as well, pass those around. This is the current pay band structure, 17 to 19, actually 17 to 20 is listed. As OMES, as we talked about that, moving toward harmonization, they really want us and are going to force us to adopt their pay band structure, not our own. So we have to consider that we would not exceed their pay band structure. So what I've done so far is just look at our pay bands and compare to theirs and make sure whatever's closest we will not exceed. Their pay bands have much wider ranges than ours do already, so there's no fear of exceeding the pay bands that we could be categorizing these positions in. So 17s through 19s would be your director, CFO, and chief of staff. and skill set superintendent, right? No? Yes, skill set or superintendent, make sure I didn't miss anybody. So all are within range and would be up to your recommendation or your vote on if we would increase. Andrew, did I miss anything they need to know?
And this will be implemented in this fiscal year and subsequent fiscal year.
Yes. Currently we have enough carryover based off positions that have not been refilled that we can give this compensation without fear of needing dollars from the legislature in the future. So that looks really good for this
This is
year.
good. I mean, you looked at it, we're
Yes.
within our, we've had discussion before from OMES about our pay structure
Yes.
for our higher tier. So, goodness.
Yes, I looked at the statute. We have met all the requirements that we need to meet, and it's our pay bands are close enough to their pay bands. We're not going to exceed that all of it meets the statute.
But is that only in this scenario? This will change going
Could,
forward?
could.
Potentially.
We don't know exactly what it'll do, but it definitely could if they determine these positions are lower pay bands. So they will be able to enforce that January 1, it looks
If they
like,
do that, we wouldn't be voting on it
most likely.
here. Okay.
But they're not gonna take away what we're
No,
doing.
they're not going to go retroactive.
So we should try to do everything in the next 6 months.
Yeah, within reason.
That's an official statement. I only represent myself.
So total calculation of this, I think, was less than 50,000. Yeah, it was less than 50,000 for that. Fairly inexpensive, more meaningful to the individuals than it is to the agency. I think it's the right move to do for our people that need the compensation to be competitive.
Make a motion to accept this as presented.
Second.
And can we add an effective date?
Oh, yes, sorry, thank you. July 1 is what I would
July 1.
recommend. Thank you, Andy. I told you I was going to do that and I forgot. Okay, any discussion? Okay, go ahead and call vote.
Mr. Dillingham?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Ganning?
Yes.
Mr. Hillary?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Great. Okay, Lisa, you ready? All right, item 3.08, discussion and possible action of the proposed Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education fiscal year 25 budget. CFO, superstar, Lisa Batchelder to present.
What an
Because I don't want to make a budget by myself, so.
Good morning, members of the board. In your packet, you should have the executive summary, FY25 budget. This is packed with information, and we should be able to get through it in the next, 2 to 3 hours. So, oh, there's Justin. I knew I'd get a reaction from Justin. Probably get that presentation pulled up.
Oh, sorry. Somebody need a coffee or water or anything?
Okay.
It really didn't take that long, you're asking us for.
No, but you've already been sitting for an hour and 10, and I know we've got.
Mike will be here shortly.
We got another. I bet that it'll go quick enough. You've got plenty to learn about. I just didn't want to interrupt Lisa if somebody needs a break for a second.
Anybody else need a break?
Yeah, drink your water. Sorry, Lisa. I should have said that
Oh, wait.
before I even brought you up here. I got to thinking about it. I was like, oh, they've already been sitting an hour and 15 minutes. No. I know you won't. I know.
Everybody decided.
I figured they need to get up and get a break for a second. The typical attention span of an adult now is 20 minutes, so I'm like, yeah.
Is that a study?
Yep.
That's actually longer than I thought.
Yeah.
That's
That's
great.
adults. For students, it's their age plus 2 minutes, I think is what they calculated it would be. So an 18-year-old gets the 20 minutes.
Even with TikTok.
Even with TikTok. You must be a pretty good teacher if you can get them in 20 minutes. Think about a kindergartner.
Yeah, actually, the daycare is, daycare in general is crazy. I mean, in a good way.
Mhm.
The daycare that we're using has an app. And so every time he falls asleep, eats, diaper change, everything, it sends you a notification. They even send you pictures throughout the app. It's really, like,
That's awesome.
yeah. So,
Things have changed.
yeah, and it's connected to the hospital, St. John's up in Tulsa. And so they have kind of like doctor's hours. So for instance, they open at 5:45 a.m.
Wow.
So on days like today, if I were tapped to drop them off before I drove out here, it's a very long day, but you can do it if you need to. So I'm just like getting
That's pretty cool.
used to seeing it all. It's wild. It's wild.
It doesn't happen in Stillwater. We open at 7:30 and not a minute early here.
Yeah.
Gotta get it fresh.
Okay. Changed everybody off. I think
Oh,
they
I
were
know.
excited about the
They are.
talk about finances. But
Yeah. I want them to eat some of that stuff. We got so much.
Sorry.
you start.
Get over.
Next time, just send me a message. Can we recess for a minute? Now you're ready to go.
Now we're ready. Awesome.
Oh, and just for the record, if everyone's back, we have to work.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, as mentioned earlier by Director Hagan, our state general appropriation base increased by $3,694,937. That was 2.3% increase. Of that increase, $3 million was for that tech center's flex benefit allowance that was discussed earlier. The remaining $694,937 increase happened because of one of those things they do between the general appropriation and the lottery appropriation, where they're just balancing the budget, basically. Because you'll also see, when the lottery appropriation decreased by that same amount. So lottery appropriation decreased $694,000, and they added it to our base. So we're using that for any potential K-12 program additions, increased operational costs, things of that nature. Oh, we're also adding a standards and curriculum alignment specialist out of those funds. That's one of the ways that we plan on using that $694,000. The one-time funding in our appropriation was $28,590,000, with $27.6 million, as Director Hagan discussed earlier. 1.5 of that, again, to refresh you, is for WED apprenticeships. $25,640,000 for that formula, the new performance formula for the tech centers, and $500,000 for agency one-time costs. We also received one-time dollars for skill centers. We added 2 transition specialists in that area, and that was $450,000 of one-time funding we used. We'll spread that over 2 years with those transition coordinators. $500,000 for High Plains Technology Center expansion into Beaver County. Carl Perkins federal grant, we received an increase of $157,000. Adult Education and Family Literacy federal grant, we actually decreased $517,000. And that was seen nationwide, actually, not just our state. American Rescue Plan Act, those are the ARPA dollars that we were allocated actually through an appropriation end of 23, started 24. That was 3 areas that we use those funds for: truck driver training, nursing training, and broadband training through our technology centers. Total on that was 14.7 million. So what we're showing here is the total we're going to budget for fiscal year 25, which is the $6.9 million. That is projecting out what they'll finish this fiscal year spending and what they'll carry forward into FY25. They have through August 1 of 26 to expend those dollars, and the state has through December 31 of 2026 to make final expenditures for ARPA funds. Apprenticeship Expansion Federal Grant. This is a new grant for our agency, but not new to the state. It was previously at Oklahoma Department of Commerce, and it's being transitioned to our agency. And we've submitted the documentation and letter of support from the governor to U.S. Department of Labor. So we built that into our budget as anticipated approval by U.S. Department of Labor. Next down, you have TANF. We have been working with Oklahoma Department of Human Services over the course of the last year, putting together a new vision for TANF and how we can assist DHS in the career training efforts using TANF dollars. So we have 3 allocations there: one for TANF career training, one for high school equivalency, and one for a JAG allocation. And that totals $4.2 million. The TANF career training is going to be first year in the 12 technology centers, and they'll have training navigators that will help the clients through what they need: financial aid, getting into whatever classes they need. And that will be their duties as a training navigator, and those are, again, 12 technology centers the first year. High school equivalency is perhaps some of those clients may need to get their high school equivalency, their GED, let's say. So they might need to get into an adult education program. So that's to help those students as they go through that process. And then the JAG allocation, that is Jobs for America's Graduates. We'll have 10 schools this first year receiving $55,000 allocations each for that. And that is a dropout prevention program. So, any questions so far? And this is just Senate Bill 1125. It shows how those dollars came to us as appropriations. You can see the $163 million base appropriation at the top, and next you can see that $28,590,000 one time. And then the 2 Section 2526 at the bottom is the lottery appropriation we're receiving this year, which is $3,836,369. Here's a view of our appropriations from 2015 to 2025. And you can see that we're up 21.3% in general appropriation from 15 to 25. I did not include the one-time 28.5. I used base dollars.
If you'll remember, most of the increase we received last year, and most of the increase we would have received, I think it may have been before this, was for pay raises for instructors. This is the first time in a long time we've received a large allocation to actually help with program growth. So we're pretty excited about that. I don't remember, in our technology centers, I don't know when we ever have received an increased allocation for that.
One time, I don't recall the last time we get a one-time allocation.
Oh, this one-time allocation is not common.
Not on this, correct?
Right, I didn't include it on
But
there.
that's what
because
you'll notice.
I just
Oh,
used
but it's
base.
general.
So in 2015, look, it was 135 million.
Yeah.
Well, we did not really exceed that again, except for a pay raise bill. So it is very rare for CareerTech to get an increase in appropriations.
Might be clearer to see here, I don't know if you can read that, but this is showing that in FY10, we were actually at 154 million general appropriation base. And now, without the one-time money, we're at the 163 million.
So we're still at less dollars that we were able to give to technology centers than we were in 2010. Just to kind of put that in perspective.
Over 10 years, we're only up 9.5 million.
And most of that has been directed by pay raises to teachers by legislation. So
But this
And
one-time
health
funding,
insurance.
how often do we receive
we've
that?
never received
We
any
never received one time.
Okay.
It's not added to our base. It won't be there
next year.
next fiscal year unless we get that added. to
Unless I
base.
can get it added, that's my goal.
That would be nice.
I don't know that it was as much pay raise as it was health insurance.
And that's been our steady increase.
That's been
The pay
steady.
raise cost us $10 million.
Yes.
It cost $10 million to keep the pay raise
But
out.
the number of employees in the agency is significantly different.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There you
yeah.
go.
That's our full-time employees.
Yes, we
Uh,
went from 337 FTE in 2010 to 230 FTE in 2025 that we're budgeting. You can see that decline in FTE over the years.
We're not growing government.
We are not. Let me step back. There's the appropriation for lottery, and you can tell that that is just pretty steady. It does look like a decline over the last couple of years, so go buy some lottery tickets there. Plug for the lottery. Okay, now our funding sources. As you can see, 68% of our dollars for this agency comes from our general appropriation base. Another 11.9% is coming this year from that one-time funding. Federal, 13.4%. Then you can see that ARP is coming in about 3% and so on down. Reminder on that agency special account that we have special permission from the OMES office to have that account. It has special parameters for its use. We use that for our conferences. You charge registration. You use that registration revenue to pay for the expenses associated with the conference.
So the 28 million is going to be attributed to next year versus 24.
In FY
Fiscal year
25
25.
starts July 1 of 24, runs to June 30, 25. Yes. Okay. Next in your packet is a summary using all funds in the budget. I know that's hard to see, so I'm going to break it down quickly and then go into the detail more than focus on the summary part. Here's the revenue comparison between 24 and 25. And you can see on the far right our projected new revenue for the agency. And you can also see the projected carry forward that we will need to fund our budget. The 7.4 million projected fund balance there is a projection. We're finishing out FY24. We haven't finished paying expenditures. We do have projects that begin in one year, end in the next year. So looking at that, I'm thinking, well, that looks a little bit high, but 2.8 of that is skill centers, and I'll tell you why that is so high. 2 years ago, was it, Justin? We received, was it last year, the appropriation for, 23 and 24. We received an appropriation for skill centers, and that was to grow our skill centers instruction. Specifically, the focus was to build a facility at Bonita. Well, it's been a slow process, to say the least. So we have carry forward. We're carrying the dollars forward just so we can save that to finish that construction.
Does that have to run through OMES? Do you have to run any of that through OMES?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
And then, so we've saved 1.5 in 23, 1.5 in 24. We've actually paid a little bit to an architect over time though, but we're trying to finish the Bonita construction, and then we have a construction we're looking at Bowling at the John Lilly Correctional Center there. So that's one reason you'll see that fund balance high, is specifically for the purpose of that construction project. Any questions there? Next, let's look at real quickly at this. This is all funds. I'll kind of skip that and go to the detail because I think it'll be easier to see if we do it by fund. That's the breakdown by entity of the pass-through dollars. You can see the vast majority of the dollars that come through this agency is passed through to a technology center, a comprehensive school, or a higher ed entity. So 78% is passed through in some way to a technology center. 18.4% is passed through in some way to a comprehensive school. And this is all funds, federal and state, that you see here. Some of the funds at the bottom, you can see and say to be determined. That's carryover dollars that we have to determine exactly what those dollars will be. That's the projected amount. And so who exactly it will be awarded to is still being determined.
Got this question a lot in from the legislature this year, just so you guys are aware. Technology centers have several different allotments of dollars. Remember, the 49 million is for their programs, and then they have flex benefit allowance. They have the pay raises that have been given by statute we maintain in our budget, and then those include support at one point, and then 2 different certified staff members. So that's why a lot of their allocation doesn't actually go to program dollars. Some of it's for other programs.
And just a reminder too, that 166 million includes Carl Perkins adult education. It also includes your WED initiatives such as TIP, TIG, firefighter training, the customized safety training formula. Any dollars that go to a tech center are in that 166 million. So it's not just operational state dollars. But let's look at it this way. This is more detailed and easier to kind of break down. That 192 million I put at the top for projected new revenue includes the one-time appropriation. Then the ways that we have budgeted to expend that follow with 13.7 million being student and stakeholder support. That's your program support here at the agency. That's your program specialists, program managers, staff that support they go out into the field. They're your accreditation team, that group of folks that help support our schools. Administration is 5 million. Skill centers is broken down in several different ways. You can see that one time 450,000. It's just right there. And that's again for the transition coordinators. You can see a total budget for skill centers with the 232, 7.8, 450, and then down at the bottom, partner programs. Totals $8.9 million for skill centers training programs. Let's find the big things here. We have the biz initiatives, 5.7 million. That goes to technology centers, like I mentioned, TIP, TIG, firefighter, safety training, customized training. We have the statewide program at Central Technology Center that's truck driver training for 2 million. And you can see here we have our little state match for Oklahoma Apex that has had several name changes. It's been OBAN, it's been PTAC, and now it's Apex. So the feds keep changing the
Federal
name of
program
that
for
program.
bid assistance and helping the businesses get started. That's what that is.
Procurement technical assistance. Next section, educational attainment, is going to be all pass-through dollars. Comprehensive school assistance, 24,565,000. That's our K-12 programs, salary supplement, summer salary supplement for ag. There's 1.5, that's that one-time money for the WED apprenticeships. You can see dropout recoveries, 1.4 million. High schools that were technology center programs, that 105, 705 is their operational funding. It's their program funding, it's their FBA, it's their legislatively mandated salary increases in that under 5 million. Then you can see the 25.6 one-time funding, 500,000 for High Plains, 1.9 for teachers' retirement direct pay. That's for, on behalf of our technology centers, we're required to pay that in to Oklahoma Teachers Retirement System. The TANF career training, that's our state match for the TANF program. And those are state budgeted funds for FY25. You can see on the far right, that leaves us with a need of carry forward funding of $5.6 million to fully fund that budget. Questions on that? Okay, lottery. We have, and I think Corey spoke to this earlier, but we only spend dollars that we've received. So FY25 lottery, we're spending FY24 funds that we've received. So for FY25, we're actually, oops. There we go. We're actually receiving $3.8 million for FY25. We're going to hold that for FY26. So over to the right, you can see what we're budgeting for FY25, which is FY24. Technology centers, comprehensive schools, and the lottery scholarships. Questions on that? Revolving. Reminder of revolving funds. They are anything that's not federal and not state. It's mostly contracts we have for services such as primarily the skill centers. We also have a printing and curriculum distribution center and a standards and assessment and testing center. So that's what makes up the majority of the revolving fund. See, there is the training contracts for the skill centers. We expect to receive 1.549 million there. That's mostly Department of Corrections, with 150,000 being OJA, Juvenile Affairs. You can see our skill centers, our print shop at 1.8 million operational budgeted. And our standards and assessment down there at 803,578. So we're relying on about 372,000 projected carry forward to fund this revolving fund budget. Federal. Let's start with Carl Perkins. That's our largest federal grant for which we're a direct recipient of those funds. Again, reminder, Carl Perkins and adult debt are 27-month money. So we get 27 months to expend an appropriation or an allotment that we receive from U.S. Department of Ed on those funds. So that's why there's usually a large carry forward on those funds. So our award this year is $18.4 million, and we have $18.6 million budgeted for pass-through. And then you can see the other budget lines there under operational that make up the other items budgeted. We are required to pass through 85% of Carl Perkins to subrecipients. 5% is the max for admin, and 10% is the max for leadership dollars. And you can see how we've broken those down here in these categories as to how we plan to expend those funds. We're counting on $3.2 million in projected Carl Perkins unspent funds from FY '24 that we bring forward and will fund FY '25 with. Adult education, family literacy, we have a $7.7 million award there. We plan to send $7.9 million to subrecipients. That grant requires 82.5% pass-through, 12.5% expended on leadership, and 5% for administration. We plan on a $1.7 million carry forward from FY '24 to help fund adult ed for FY '25. Any questions there? The rest of the federal funds, you can see the ARPA funds, that nursing truck driver broadband, budgeting $6.9 million for FY '25. And our other federal grants are listed at the bottom. The new state apprenticeship expansion grant that's pending DOL approval, Oklahoma Apex, Second Chance Act, and the 3 TANA federal grants that we are secondary recipient from DHS. That's the federal funds. At the bottom is that agency special account. Our agreement with OMES says that we are able to expend up to $345,000. So we've always just budget $345,000. Same, well, we won't spend more than that. This is just a really quick summary of all of what was presented in the budget. Questions?
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. She does very well. Keeps us straight. Yeah.
I would ask your approval for the FY '25.
If there's no questions, we'll entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second as presented. During discussion. Seeing none, let's call a vote.
Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Hillary,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Dillingham,
Yes.
Oh, man.
An extra.
Actually did that on purpose. Didn't want Randy to have one. Don't give one to Randy, he'll ask questions.
Smart as you.
All right. I think we got through everything. We did good. Not even 2 hours yet. Making up for the other one. Okay, have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Roll call, Ashley.
Mr. Dillingham,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hillary,
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Very good.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
everyone
think
that
probably the
presented
first
too.
day out, right?
A lot of business today.
I mean, completely out.
Oh, you know, yeah, you're right, it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
Where I
this
can't
is
like,
bad.
this is the first too.
Yeah.
From him.
That's what he said. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He even took pictures. He thought I was doubting him or something.
Oh, yeah, it's been, it's been.
How does he like the tailoring?
Oh.
Yeah.
How does he like it? He naps well
That's what I was thinking.
with the machine.
That's good.
Yeah, he really, he's very, he was just becoming more